o'clock. I'll go ahead and call the council meeting to order. We do show that we do have a quorum. First order of our work session is to discuss the agenda items. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The first item tonight on your consent agenda are the minutes for the June 7th, 2016 council meeting. The next item on the consent agenda is a resolution awarding a bid and authorizing a fixed 5-year lease for print management services with Documentation of North Texas. This is in a total amount of $91,890. And what this does is provide for all of the copiers, high-speed copiers and printers in the city. It will result in a cost savings of about $2,500 a year over the life of that, and will reduce the number of printers that we have in desktop printers, and this provides all services through that contract.
Let me ask you if they won't, by reducing the amount of printers, you still are not going to stack work up, are you?
No, the newer printers are higher speed. They can be networked, so you can print from your computer, so it gives you a lot more functionality. The high-speed printers too are typically, the cost per copy is a lot less than a desktop printer. So what we're trying to do is consolidate, reduce the number of desktop printers and go to the higher speed shared printers.
So I'm gonna save on tone too.
Exactly right.
Sound like a good deal to me?
The next item is a resolution authorizing the first of 2 one-year renewal options for janitorial services at the field house. And this is with Vanguard Services. The original term was 2 years, so this will be the first renewal, 1-year renewal. We have been satisfied with their services and that those funds are budgeted.
How often do they claim? Do they claim just for the tournaments, or they claim every week, every day?
It's a daily cleaning.
Because I saw President of the Chambers and was asking if we had any issues for his tournaments, and he said that without exception, every time 2 weeks before a tournament, you would go there, and the bathrooms would be completely filthy. They need to be, or something need to be repaired or cleaned out. So I was wondering if they were responsible for it, and if that could be addressed.
Yes, absolutely. And so that came from the President of the Chamber of Commerce, and we will talk with him and make sure that he tells us that ahead of time and lets us know, and we'll follow up and make sure that that gets done. We have had some problems with plumbing during the tournaments, but we've been addressing that as well with maintenance staff, and we've had a plumber out to look at that.
The conversation I've heard, where I think what he's referring to, you have to check with him to be sure, is those upstairs bathrooms in the viewing where the coaches.
Oh, okay.
And that was where we had the plumbing problem.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, don't know about it.
Yeah.
The next item on the consent agenda is a resolution authorizing procurement of pipe bursting wastewater improvements, and this is in the Colonnade, Hilltop Estates, and Daniel Acres additions. This is in the amount of $1,229,737. We've been talking with you before about pipe bursting and that method for replacing wastewater lines. This area was chosen because of the age and the poor condition of those lines, and so this is part of our further work to try to reduce, repair our aging infrastructure, but also to reduce infiltration and inflow from rain events that go into our sewer system and then can cause sanitary sewer overflows, but also increases the amount of wastewater that's going to Trinity River Authority that we end up paying for. So this expenditure, this contract is a little bit over the budget. We budgeted $1.2 million in the capital improvements fund, but we will use $29,737 out of our developer participation or contingency account. We have $40,000 in there, and those are funds that are set aside in our budget to pay for, like, oversizing a line or something else that the developer would not be required to do, but that we would see the benefit of doing for the greater public benefit that we would pay extra. We have not used any of those funds, so those funds are available, and so we're recommending you use that amount.
We received emails, conversation, question and answers, and one of it concerned this. I'd like the citizens to know what was discussed. So from Councilmember Harvey, you want to give a brief, what you learned about the pipe bursting? You had a series of questions you asked the city manager.
Oh, yeah.
Did we all get a copy of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Oh, you talk about it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want to get to be on record.
Sure.
It
I
was
think-
informational.
If I recall, the first question was about pipe bursting and would not, under what types of circumstances would we not recommend pipe bursting, since that is a very cost-efficient method. And Mike, you want to mention that there are times when pipe bursting is not the best alternative?
Yes. The biggest drawback to pipe bursting is if the existing line through age and just over time has settled and there's actually a sag in the line. I know it sounds kind of hard for that to happen underground, but the soil does move down that deep. Pipe bursting follows the alignment or the route of that existing pipe. Well, we wouldn't want to put in a brand new pipe and then have a sag in that. So we would not recommend pipe bursting at all in that scenario. And then there's a limitation to if we wanted to upsize pipes, you can use pipe bursting because it does exactly what it says. The machine expands out, and you can, and this contract actually does do that, where it takes a 6-inch line and will replace it with an 8-inch line. You can't go much larger than 2 line sizes, so it's to maybe a 10-inch. That might be the very upper limit where we would be able to use pipe bursting, because there's also other things in the ground like other utilities and things like that that we might start to affect. And so those would be the main areas or the main circumstances where we would probably not recommend pipe bursting. I hope that makes sense.
I was just reading it thinking, well, that would be nice for the citizens to be briefed on that.
Any of those
Oh,
other-
I'm sorry, Mayor, I did leave out one explanation, and that is the other reason we wouldn't pipe burst is if we're ever crossing a high-pressure gas line, like either Exxon or Magellan. So that would be done by open cut for obvious reasons. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no problem. Anything else on that?
Just a general question, I guess. We're using In Situ Farm from the buy board. Our last job, we used a contractor from the buy board or whatever. I'm just wondering why we're switching contractors.
Again, just price
So
and
this,
availability.
okay. Well, this is a big job, so.
Yeah, it is. This job actually, if you'll allow me, this one's kind of one of the barometers. At the south end of this subdivision, there's a street called Little, and there's a manhole on Little, and we know that if that manhole on Little, if it ever comes up, gets blown off, then we're going to end up with problems throughout the city, and it's kind of what the water or wastewater crews use as a barometer, and this would eliminate that, as well as some backups to the Austin, I forget their name, Austin Stone Apartments, I believe. But again, that's why I'm doing this.
And I guess all the sewer laterals, because there's a paragraph in their proposal where they talk about how they're going to handle the laterals. Are we telling them to handle all the laterals, or just the ones we choose, or?
It's a little bit confusing there, Councilmember, and I talked with Steve Miller before the meeting. We're going to replace all the connections, the taps where there's existing homes. There's no question about it. But he quoted, for example, there's a building on Main Street where there's actually 3 service lines that go out. Well, there's no need to put in three taps for that. So we got to find out which one's the right one, and then we'll connect that. And so there's a provision, what you read in the agreement itself with the in situ form. It says something, I think, to the effect that they won't do that without our prior approval or our prior direction.
Yeah,
And it's for things like that.
And we hold them harmless in case there's an uh-oh.
Yeah, basically their contract says that they will, the way it's worded is a little confusing, but what they're saying is we're gonna reconnect everything we disconnect unless you tell us not to.
Yeah.
And then what Mike's saying is that there are some that we will tell them not to reconnect.
Well, I had to read that a couple of times because it is kind of convoluted.
Yeah, it is. It could have been worded.
I think Alexis also caught that when she was reviewing it and then questioned the wording on there too. So.
Yeah, that's what Steve told me.
Okay, nothing further on that?
On the regular agenda, the first item 5A is a public hearing and it's a zoning request change to amend the current zoning of PD2 plan development to C1 light commercial, and this is for property at 1423 North Duncanville Road.
What do you want District 5 thinks about that?
I think that I would prefer that it was put on hold and that we know exactly what was intended for that site before we change the zoning. We could.
Well, the applicant should be here for the meeting, so I think we can ask those questions. And I think you can have some options that you can ask the applicant to voluntarily restrict the uses, or you can consider denying a request or remanding it to P&Z if there are concerns about approving the request as requested, or approving the zoning use as requested.
Yeah, I have that same problem in that is a down zone. And why would we want to go ahead and give a down zoning when he can't tell us what he wants to put on there? It looks like to me he got the things reversed. I would much rather see him come and say, I want this rezone C1 because here's what I want to go in there with, and it doesn't meet your zoning. But you give him blanket authority to down zone and then not tell us what apparently he doesn't have anything yet. He just figures that he'd have a better chance of getting something.
Does he have
The applicant has a potential tenant, and he can testify to that during the public hearing, but he'll be able to answer.
Okay, well, it's my understanding that he could not tell P&Z what was going in there.
Right, as far as there's 2 tenant spaces in the front building, and he has a confirmed tenant or a proposed tenant for one of the spaces, and I don't think he has a confirmed tenant for the second space. But the applicant will be at the public hearing tonight.
Okay. All right.
Well, I do have concerns. It backs up to a park, a residential area, and I think we made a big mistake with that little stop and go with the gas and beer and wine on the corner of Duncanville Road and Redbird. It really causes issues for that neighborhood. And I think that we need to protect our neighborhoods and our parks.
This question for Cassie. Cassie, one thing that I had a question about, there is a home built next door to the property. It happens to be in Dallas. Did they get a copy of our request for zoning change?
They did not, because they are outside of the city limit. That property though in Dallas is actually zoned commercial. So the home that is on that property is a legal non-conforming use.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Well, it looks like that this applicant actually owns the lot to the north,
Correct.
which is in Dallas.
Correct.
So what is going to happen on this lot is likely to happen on the Dallas lot too.
Or vice versa, what can happen on the Dallas lot, they can do that without having to come before this body. So that's
Yeah, in Dallas.
In Dallas, correct.
Yeah, right now it appears to be vacant, other than I think he's got a driveway.
There is a
or
driveway,
something.
yes.
And I guess, can we get a short explanation from the attorney about what we can ask of the applicant without getting into contract zoning?
Well, you can ask, I mean, it's pretty broad on what you can ask the applicant. It's really what it comes down to is what you base your decision on. So I'm cautious to say what you can and can't ask the applicant. What you want to be sure is that you're not making a determination to exclude someone because of a specific protected type of use. And from what I've heard here, I don't know that we really necessarily know what the intended type of use is. But, you know, we don't want to exclude anyone because of protected use. Protected use would be, I can't even think with this, it sounds like he's just looking for commercial type
Well,
uses.
I'll give you an
And
example.
without knowing what his intention is, it's hard to kind of limit or guide you on what you would or would not want to ask.
Right now, he's got a really large buffer between the city park and where his buildings are. Can we ask him, even though this is straight zoning, it's in the PD to leave that undeveloped, can we ask him as a part of approving this zoning that he leave a buffer zone back there, that he does not develop?
You could always ask him that. There's no reason that you can't, because it's, in consideration of his application, you can modify the recommendation from P&Z. And so if the applicant were to agree to that condition, you could add that as a condition.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see any
I just don't
legal,
want to cross the line.
right, I don't see any legal problem with that.
Well, if we send it back to P&Z, then what? They can modify it.
They can.
Yeah, they can do all that.
But we have the authority to go ahead and that's coming to us, the final authority to do whatever we want. We wouldn't have to send it back to P&Z and say, we would like you to consider doing this, but that's what we're doing.
Oh, I didn't mean that we would say, we would like for you to consider it. I meant, we would like for you to change it, fix it. I think they were confused.
Well, I was confused over the fact that I don't like rezoning something, especially a downzoning, when I'm not told that there's a tenant that's going to go in there. I want to know what, if he wants to downzone it, I'd like to know what he's got in mind. And if he can't tell us what he's got in mind or doesn't have anybody lined up, then I think the proper time would have been when he gets somebody, then come and ask for that zoning change.
Well, what if he thinks he has someone and we change the zoning and the person backs out? I think that needs to be
Well, that would be a consideration, but I think that Chastity just said he's already got one there. And this is the other half of the property.
And part of for the applicant, they've contended that they're having a difficult time marketing the property, and I've been contacted by the realtor for multiple tenants that can't go into the existing zoning. So I think it's partially that they may not have a confirmed tenant, and partially that they're trying to rezone it to be able to market it to other types of tenants.
And I understand that, but I still don't like the down zone
Sure.
without knowing what they're talking about. Because there are 2 or 3 of those uses that I really
Absolutely.
think that would not be to our best interest to have there, so. Okay. Anything else?
I'm with you, so what do you think?
Well,
You want to send it back or you want to just?
I think we ought to hear the fella and then make a decision. After all, and when it comes up, then let's question the man and make up our own mind what we want to do. I was unaware that he had part of it already leased.
If the applicant can answer your questions and agrees to any restrictions that y'all would like, or ask him if he's agreeable to these changes or these restrictions on the uses, and you're comfortable with it, you can approve it then with those changes today, and then it doesn't go back, and then you move on. But, so I think you have that opportunity, and I would suggest that you wait and hear what he has to say, ask him your questions, see what he's willing to do. He may be willing to do what you would like, and then you can make those changes.
Well, my thought was that there was just so many, I'm with the mayor, there's so many items in there that I don't think are appropriate for the area, that it needs to be thought out. What to ask him to agree to.
Well, I think you can ask him, this is a long list of things, that we have concerns about. What are these, are there any items on here that you would agree you would not need or would not you do? And he may tell you, well, I can take this off the list, I can take this, I'll be okay with those. And that may get you where you want to be.
So we can tell him we don't want you to use this property for this purpose, under that zone?
I think if you have a concern, like for automotive uses, and you brought that up, I think you could ask him, you know, we have a concern with this, are you planning to use it for that? And he says no, you can say, would you be agreeable then to taking those uses off of the C1 zoning list for your property? And I think is at that point, it becomes a PD then, if you start modifying it, right? So that would be then, you would be modifying it to a PD zoning with then those restrictions that he agrees to and that you agree to.
But I agree, I think we need a buffer zone between the park and the property. That is a very, very deep piece of property there, so I don't think that would hurt it too bad. Okay, anything else on that one?
The next item is a resolution approving a request for an additional 38 square feet of wall signage, and this is for a property at 831 North Duncanville Road. And I believe that is the one that they have a sign on the front of their building. They're in a strip center, and they're asking for an additional sign on the end of that strip center building.
It's a wall change.
No, this is the first one's a little change.
That's in District 2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped to C, I'm sorry, 5B, you're right, 5B is the Take 5 oil change at 570 West Wheatland, and so what they're asking for is additional signage on the back side of the building where their customers would drive through, so that's what that request was.
What does District 2 think about it?
I don't have a problem. Because you've always driven around to the back of that to have your oil change. So I really can't see that.
You can't see that from the street.
Can't see it from the street.
Now that you have to stay in your car, so.
You gotta stay in your car anyway, so I don't have a problem with
Someone probably gets coupons and doesn't give them to the rest of it.
that. I don't get
Isn't that right there by your office?
It's right by my
Steve's
office.
thinking he might want to sign on the
Talks about it
back.
all the time, he's always talking about the oil change place. No, there's been at least twice, and this is the third time tonight, so. Well, I bet you do get coupons, they're probably in your car. And I think you should share.
Okay, I think we discussed that one.
Synthetic oil, please.
The next item is 5C, sorry I jumped ahead. The next item is 5C, and that is for the business located at 831 North Duncanville Road.
It's your district.
I feel like this is overkill. They have a sign on two sides, and they're asking for almost double the size. In the front, we've talked about sign ordinances before, and I can't figure out what the signboard was thinking, because it's huge.
I have a question. This is an attorney question. If every variance we give, we go ahead and give it to them, there's no sense of us having an ordinance. And so I remember a business on Wheatland in District 3, and they wanted to put signs all over the place, and we got them where, you just have a sign on each side, certain length, but you make it nice looking. And I think that that's the image of our city that we want other people to see when they come in. They're not bombarded with red, yellow, white, blue. But, they see the signs, but they're not, it's not like a Korean market. That's not all I'm saying.
You just said that on television.
I know. And I
I
love
think it
Korea.
probably was.
I love Korea. So what do you?
Well, you have the ability under your ordinance to modify what the sign control board does or deny what they've done. So you have the ability to, I think you're right, I've seen myself that it seems like we grant, a lot of these are continually granted. It doesn't take away from your ability not to, per se. But, yeah, does that address your question?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
asked the council to visualize what you want the city to look like.
Well, I think that, and your point about the variance is a good point too, and I think it does, there are times when obviously a variance makes sense because of the situation and the circumstances for something.
Like on the back of the building.
And you can make a logical reason why that is different than someone else. The more variances you grant, the harder it is then down the road to not set a precedent. So I think you have to be careful with that. And if you're gonna always grant a variance for these things, then yes, we need to change the sign ordinance and allow it, or we don't. So I think, you know, that's something you have to be careful of. Now, on a more general note, I will say that we are looking at some specific changes to the sign ordinance that we're planning to come and talk to the council about here in the next month or so. That would be an opportunity for you to give us some feedback as well on other things that you might want to see different in the sign ordinance, so that we can know then and come back to you with proposed changes. So just know that we are looking at it right now for some specific things, but if this is an area of concern, then we want to know. So
We do grant a lot of those, and I don't have as much problem if our limit is 40 square feet and they need to do 43, 45 square feet or something like it. Just a little bit more to fit a spot or whatever. But I can remember when we put those ordinances in, I think I was probably on P&Z at the time, and very frankly, we didn't want it to look like certain parts of Dallas where you got signs everywhere. And so we need to guard against that.
And you remember when we had the situation on Cockrell Hill with the 2 chicken places? And the first one that went in got a variance and got a bigger sign. Second one came in was Chicken Express, and they did, or maybe Chicken Express was the first one. They got the variance, and the second one was what was it?
Chicken Plaza, they're out of business now.
Yeah, they went out of business, but they did not get the variance, and they were
I
furious.
don't think it had to do with the sign.
It did. Oh, well, I don't either. But I don't either. But if, you know, it didn't make him feel any better. So, and he's right. When you start that, then, you know, and everybody thinks that they have a significant reason why theirs should get the variance. Nobody thinks they're not special.
Okay. Well, again, point well taken. I think that we ought to take a look at what sign control board is going to be recommending and give some input into it.
And then the last item on the agenda tonight, on the regular agenda, is 5D, and that is to a request to accept a grant from the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program. And this is a grant administered through the state, and Duncanville will receive $6,795. We're proposing to use those funds for an extended maintenance agreement for the mobile video system and DVD burner.
Is there a reason we would turn down a grant?
So,
Money.
no, I just find it interesting that the county takes a share out of it.
Yeah, I did too.
But you got to realize, Jeff said he wants to reduce
He
taxes.
does, of course, yeah.
Well, he seems like he's the only one on there. He didn't get a consensus.
Okay. That's all of our regular agenda. So, our first presentation tonight will be item number 2A, and that's to receive a presentation from the Duncanville Virtual Reality Innovation Commission on their progress plans and recommendations today.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. I'd like to present Mr. Reza Ali from the Virtual Reality Innovation Commission. President Vergara wasn't able to be here tonight. She's teaching class and having to work with her students, and so Mr. Ali has graciously decided to come and speak to you, and their presentation's ready to go. So if you're ready, sir, we're ready for you.
So yeah, well, thank you for having me, and hopefully you all learned something today. So, Duncanville Virtual Reality Commission, made up of these members here. As mentioned before, Dr. Judy Regard can be here, so I'll be taking her place. So we'll go through the objectives, the progress we've made towards what you've put forward with us here, and any issues we have currently. So, per Capstone 4, you wanted us to become the edutainment capital of Texas here, and we've begun the process of identifying and engaging the various stakeholders within our community and the surrounding areas as well. So, among these, we've begun a process of using and displaying virtual reality products from Eon Reality within our library here, and one main idea that we're currently engaged with now is a VR summer scavenger hunt and an interactive mirror placed within the library here. And this will involve students and parents, and they'll use various technology. In this case, Samsung tablets with goggles that students will place over their heads to see into various locations within the virtual reality modules provided by Eon Reality. And in this case here, there'll be various clues placed within these virtual reality environments that will allow the children to further along their scavenger hunt, and there'll be prizes of undetermined, probably food or gift cards or something to make it entertaining for the children involved. And also, this gives the opportunity for school children here to actually visit a library and experience what is available to them in our community. As years have gone on, various kids just don't see the needs to go to the library, but we feel something like this will make them more excited to go to other library events as well. And of course, Eon Experience application is available free on iOS and Google Play Store as well, so feel free to download it. And going along, these Samsung tablets were loaned by Eon Reality, and we've discussed the insurance liability coverage for these products as well. And all these activities are also cost neutral as well. So we also want to engage with the community as well to make sure that they know what is going on with Eon Reality in Duncanville. So we contacted local newspapers, Southwest Now Magazine, and LED City Sign to generate interest with the goings-on of Eon Reality, and also to increase the applicant pool for Eon Reality so we get qualified candidates to apply to the school. And also, one of our main stakeholders that we've been working with here is International Museum of Cultures here. So we're acting as an interlocutor between our board, Eon Reality, and the International Museum of Cultures. You see 20,000 visitors per year, and this museum is very, very interested in applying virtual reality products within their museum experience. And in fact, Eon's actually taken one artifact museum from Machu Picchu and placed it within the virtual reality environment of Machu Picchu as well. So if you were to download that module on your phone or tablet, you'd be able to see this artifact that's in the museum within the virtual reality experience here. And we hope this will increase visitors not only to the museum but also to the surrounding Duncanville businesses as well. And also we've been looking at the possibility of placing virtual reality experiences within our field house as well, namely the potential for sports training that would be entailed by the virtual reality cube that's offered by Eon. In this case, training simulators offering basketball, baseball, soccer as well, and also there's some great interest from the board in having an interactive bicycle race where you can recreate scenes from the Tour de France or other famous bicycle races as well, and have multiple people race along that. And so we're still working on the placing location within the field house, timing, and also manning and operating the cube, as it is a very highly technical piece of equipment here. But we feel that we can use this as advertising for the field house and also for any sports teams or corporations that want to have events in the field house. They can offer athletes the ability to have a different training experience than is offered anywhere else. And of course, we're also interested in working with the Economic Development Board in terms of using this VR products as opportunities to advertise Duncanville as a city to increase business and residential population, as people are interested in building a whole economy around virtual reality as well. And also we talked and discussed about increasing field house parking, as we've noticed that if we were to include virtual reality products, maybe the attendance will increase greatly at the field house as well. So looking at funding grants and bonds to increase that and also have more technology within Duncanville as well. And also we talked about as the increased attendance of field house events, restaurants and other businesses that will be supported by the increased number of events and increase of attendees at these events based on virtual reality experiences. And also, we will also want to consider our school-age children within DISD as well, as giving them tours of the EON facility, because virtual reality is the next new frontier for electronic devices. Samsung, Sony, Microsoft, Oculus are all getting into the VR program here. Students are very interested in VR, and we want to give them a chance right with their own two eyes and be able to pick up and experience it firsthand. So we're looking at possibly offering a course at DISD to get students involved in the basic nuts and bolts of programming for VR as well. And we've also created a survey for EON graduates, asking who they are, plans after graduation, employee, entrepreneur, and also we want to see what do they like about Duncanville as well, what do they like to do in their free time, and their general thoughts about Duncanville, because we want to get their idea as to their time here. They spent a year here, so we want to see what they think of Duncanville and maybe consider them if they were to start a new business that can take off. Why not base it in Duncanville, next to the school? So we also want to create more community awareness for events, because a lot of the community may not know about EON Reality and the great amount of work they do. And also, furthering that along, EON's product, the iDome, and looking at locations for placing an iDome. It's very much a communal VR experience where you have a group of a dozen or more people immersed in a certain environment here. So we have been discussing the location of placing an iDome within Duncanville to become the edutainment capital of Texas.
Thank you very much. Do y'all have any questions for Mr. Ali or any of us at this time? Appreciate you very much letting us present to you this evening.
Looks like a great presentation, and you've got some real good ideas that you'll put together and move it forward.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll work on it.
Okay, item number 2B is discuss the campaign finance contribution limitation of $1,000 from any individual or corporation as approved by the City of Duncanville Ordinance number 2113 on May 4, 2010.
I asked for this to be placed on the agenda. I considered it a learning opportunity for me because we're in campaign season nationally. And the thought occurred to me because some people do self-finance their own campaigns. And I was aware of this limitation, so I was trying to reconcile in my mind how these two come together. So I asked for it to be on the agenda, so if nothing else, it could help me better understand that particular situation. So.
Okay, so basically you got a question to ask the attorney.
Yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. So I'm operating under this, of the understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, if a person self-finances their own campaign, they can only use $1,000 of their own money.
That's what I'm looking at, the specific language of the ordinance, just to see if there's any exception, but it doesn't appear that there is. So absent that, I think your interpretation would be correct, unless you were to build in an exception that says except for the candidate. You know, otherwise it says individual and you're an individual, so I think that would apply to the candidates as well. Individually.
I think
Yeah,
we've had
but then
candidates.
you go in there, there's provisions in there that you can loan the campaign money and,
Right.
but you know, there's no, statement that you ever have to pay it back and stuff like that. I think it's very confusing.
And you're right, there are provisions under state law as well that you can do loans, and it's a little foggy as to how or when they're required to be paid back. But taking those loans, considering them with your ethics ordinance limitation, my interpretation would be if you're just going to give it to your campaign or contribute it yourself of $1,000, you're limited there. If you're gonna loan it, and you do it as a loan, and at the end of the campaign, if there's money left, it would be paid back, then I think that you might be okay, because it's not really a contribution, then it's a loan.
There's no provision or penalty or anything if you never pay it back.
Right, you're right.
It's kind of like going around,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think there have been several in the past that used their own money and spent more than $1,000. I have, but because I didn't want to.
Personally, I would like to do what we did with the sign ordinance, is scrap the thing and use the state ordinance. That's what the other best Southwest cities do.
Well, I don't have a problem with the $1,000 limit for other individuals, but I don't see why you can spend whatever you want to with your own money.
Yeah. You can
Because
spend
that's
your money on
different.
what you like with anything else, but this, you
Yeah.
can't spend your money on yourself.
Yeah, no, I think you ought to be able to spend your own money if that's what you want to do, but,
That wasn't the intent. When it was originally put in, the reason it was put in because one corporation gave $5,000 and
Right.
unbalanced the mayor's race, way back in 1990, I guess it was. And I don't think, of course, no corporation is supposed to give any money anyway. I mean, I had a corporation try to give me money, I had to give it back. So, I mean, I think, that was never the intent to limit individuals. I mean, that was not, and when it was raised from $250, which we put
Right.
to $1,000, it was because, things kept getting more and more expensive to run. And that's the history that I remember of it.
In fact, that ordinance is wrong in that it states that a corporation can only give $1,000, and corporation can't give any.
Yeah.
So,
It seems to me that the intent of this also was to limit the influence from outside sources. But you're gonna influence yourself anyway, so
Yeah.
if you were spending more than $1,000 of your own money, but it seems like that was the intent of it.
well, I think we ought to fix it then, so that it's clear that you can spend your own money, but I really like to have the limit on an outside.
we do it differently than the other best Southwest cities do in most cities, I think.
Right, yeah, most.
Most cities, they just use state law and go with that.
And as a citizen, you have to wonder, this is a free job. And if someone's spending tens of thousands of dollars to get this free job, why?
Why? Exactly. In fact, you can take a whipping in this job. Why are you paying it?
So I
Yes.
know.
And so why would you pay that to get beat up?
The Ethics Commission says it has to do with being able to track that money. Nobody knows how you got the $10,000 that you gave yourself for your campaign. You don't have to declare that or prove where you got that money. It's my money, I can use it wherever I want. So part of that was brought in to try to track the contributions to your political campaign.
Well,
Somebody could give me $100 grand and I wanted to run, so that's my money. You don't know where it came from. That's why you have to file, that's why you have to keep great records on where you got contributions, how you spent those contributions, and what's left over. So that's some of the limitations by the Ethics Commission that is, it's not, you like to report that to them.
Well, is there a way that we can?
I would definitely like to revisit that, because, if you want to spend your own money, then, well and good to get whipped. If that's what you want to do, do it. But I do agree that it should be clearly a limitation from outside sources, and the $1,000 is fine with me. And other than that, we can follow state ordinance.
Well, are you saying you want us to what this council is doing, instructing the attorney to rewrite that section of the ordinance and bring us what they're...
I'm personally interested in it, so, but I'm just one of 7.
I don't know how can you do it so that,
Yeah, I don't know that you could do it with addressing his concerns. I mean, 'cause you really can't require a candidate to
show us your
necessarily
bank statement.
accounting for
Yeah.
it, yeah. I don't know that you legally really can force them to do.
Well, what I'm hearing said is if you, first of all, you need to eliminate that corporate section in there, because that's wrong to start with. And second, the council's saying that they want a $1,000 limitation, and that candidate can contribute all they want to their campaign.
I mean, you make a very good point, Councilmember, about somebody wanting to give $100,000, but I just can't see why somebody would want to give $100,000 to.
That
Let's
was
pull the
the-
big number out.
It's a hyperbole.
For a job that pays nothing, come on, guys. How much money have y'all taken on from this job?
$30 a month.
How much have you gotten in donations?
How much did you spend out of your own pocket? You don't want to answer that one either.
Well, there's no doubt if you're gonna run it large, it's gonna take more money than if you're running for an individual.
Yeah, the citywide election does take
Yeah.
more than the
But,
district election.
Feel that 1,000 is what we need to limit it to, then
Yeah, I would like to see it higher than 1,000, even in a district election. Every sign you put up still costs you $5. So if you buy 400 or 500 signs, which it took for one district, I mean, there's $2,500 right there.
But you're talking about donation from an outside source, not yourself.
No, I understand.
I still wonder, what do you want in a little town like this if you're giving that kind of money?
You can check my
Okay.
contributions.
I
got nothing close to
Well,
$1,000 from
yeah, I haven't
individuals,
either,
so,
and I don't.
yeah.
Maybe, can we tie it to inflation? Because $1,000 that was done when they did this ordinance and things.
Because it has been 6
It-
years since.
Yeah, but it had, I still question on, I think 1,000 in a little bitty town from an individual, because we have had instances before. In fact, we've had people who had contracts with the cities that were donating money. We've absolutely had it, and I think limiting it to 1,000 keeps that from,
Yeah, I can tell you I spent 300.
that's what I'm saying.
I did a lot of walking.
Everybody knows this.
Xerox to myself and walk it, and I could afford mail.
Yeah, I'm
Not
pretty
that
tight
popular.
too. I'm pretty tight too.
I got kids.
I don't see
Got
why.
a lot of kids.
I got one. I can't get him off the couch.
Okay, any more pertinent comments? Okay, I think we got that, so you got it down.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll wait for them to bring back a draft copy for us to look at. Okay. All right, that concludes our briefing session at,
We want to have the economic development.
oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to announce that. We're pulling item C and we'll change date to July the 19th. And I'll remind everybody that our next meeting is July the 19th, because we're not going to meet on July the 5th. So Patrick agrees with that. Yes,
Could we talk a little bit about the 4th of July parade? Well, I guess,
This is actually for your VIP stuff for the evening.
Hey, would we be better to go ahead and adjourn and we sit here and talk about that? Because it's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
And then we can get the
We're
agenda.
on the agenda.
Okay, so that being the last item on our agenda, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 6:50. And tonight will be our invocation from First United Methodist Church, Duncanville, Pastor Frank Alleguera, who is our senior pastor. So he will lead us in our invocation, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So at this time, will you please stand?
Thank you, Mayor. Almighty God, thank you. We always thank you, Lord, for another day of life, for it's precious, and we should never take it for granted. However, Lord, when one city grieves, all cities grieve. And I know, Lord, that we have had thoughts and prayers and support for our sister city in Orlando, Florida. And we pray for the leadership there, Lord, that makes tough decisions, for the police force and for all the first responders. Lord, may your grace and your comfort and your assurance be with everyone in that city, and especially, Lord, those most affected. Lord, this evening we come here before the City Council chambers. We have an agenda, Lord, and we trust it'll be part of your agenda. And we ask your blessings upon the leadership, the council, the city manager, and all the efforts that have been placed before this meeting occurred. We ask your blessings, Lord, in such a way that it'll be affirmed, it'll be assured, and that this city will continue to prosper in what your plans will be for them, for us, and for this great community. Thank you, Lord, for this time. And we pray this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge the allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, my report tonight will be to remind everybody that we've got a big event coming up here on July the 4th. We received our little briefing a while ago, and the events are going to be great. The crowd's going to be controlled, well policed, and it will be a safe event for all of us with a great fireworks show. And prior to that, on the 4th of July morning, we'll have our annual parade. Starts at 10 o'clock. This is one of the highlights for me every year because it's kind of a hometown 4th of July parade. And it's a lot of fun, and we have a great turnout each year for it. So put that on your calendar and be ready for our 4th of July parade and our fireworks show later on that evening. Also, we've got our Duncan Switch that goes on each and every month. And we would encourage you to come out because this is a great thing that happens in Duncanville, where we have our annual or our monthly festival down, and all of the vendors come in, set up their tents, and it's a real good time. And there's some real good buys down there too. So we would invite you to put that on your calendar. It's the third Saturday of each month from 8 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Next item is council member reports. Councilmember Thomas.
I'd like to remind you that this Thursday from 8 o'clock to 2 p.m. is the budget workshop that the City Council gets to hear from the staff what the budget's going to look like. That's an open meeting. It's being the briefing meeting. Please come, even if you don't have to stay for the whole time, come an hour or two and really listen to what the don't wait until the public hearings if you have an issue. It'd be better if we know about it now than later, and it'd be better if you knew about what the direction that the City Council is going and the city staff now rather than later. Thanks.
And I didn't announce that we have one of our council members out tonight. He's on vacation. His daughter is dancing at Disney World, so he's going to be there for that, Dr. Dotson. Yes, and that's the second thing I wanted to do. And the second thing I want to announce is that our July 5th meeting will be canceled. It's right next to the 4th of July, so we're going to cancel that meeting. So our next meeting will be on July the 19th. So there'll be a little period there where we won't be meeting, but we'll be meeting with things like our budget committee and several other things that we've got to do as a council. Seeing no further lights, City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Would like to let the public know that one of the things that we've been working on is a total revamp of our city website. And we are almost ready to launch that. We're planning to launch our new website on July 1st. This website will be a lot cleaner, more interactive. One of our main goals was to make a website that is more useful and user-friendly to the citizens and has a lot more interactivity in it. And it will allow more engagement with citizens through interactive forums on the website. Will allow visitors to leave comments on published articles on the website. It will integrate with social media. We've not had a very strong social media presence to date. So this website, we will also be integrating social media with that. And we'll also have a more enhanced request tracker system. And that's something that not a lot of people use right now, but is on our website. But it allows a citizen to go in and submit a question or a complaint, whether it's a code enforcement issue or something with trash pickup or a police issue or whatever it might be. And that system is available now, but it's not very user-friendly. With our new website, we'll have a more enhanced request tracker system. We'll have a much stronger branding and marketing presence on that and really portray the Duncanville brand and what we want to be known for in our community. We're pleased also to note that we're working with a local web designer, Jorge Ruiz, and his company Color Prep. And Jorge was previously on the Social Engagement Partnership Committee. He is no longer on that committee, but he's working with us to design that website. And I think it gives us a number of advantages in that being a citizen, he also knows what a citizen is looking for in the city's website. And then with his expertise in web design, we have been very pleased with that and where we're going. City staff has been working hard with him to develop that website. And so again, we're planning to launch that on July 1st. We will present that at the City Council meeting July 19th and show you too what it looks like at that point. But we're very excited, and we think that's a next major step forward in our efforts to communicate better with the citizens and visitors to our community. Thank you.
One further announcement I need to make is you'll notice that our screen is blank tonight. We had the bulb go out on the projector. And since those are $500 a piece, we don't overstock on that item. So it will be up and running shortly. Item number 2 is proclamations and presentations, and we don't have any tonight. And item number 3 is citizen input. And City Secretary, I assume we have no cards? Okay, we'll move right on down to our consent items. Their consent items are items number 4A through 4D, and I will ask the City Secretary to read those captions.
4A, consider the minutes for the June 7, 2016 City Council regular meeting. 4B, consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, awarding a bid and authorizing a 5-year fixed lease for print management services citywide with documentation of North Texas, Inc., provided in Exhibit A, and the unit amounts proposed through a City of DeSoto cooperative purchasing agreement in the total amount of $91,890, authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary documents and providing for an effective date. 4C, Consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, authorizing the first of 2 one-year renewal options for janitorial services at the Duncanville Fieldhouse with Gilliam Investments, Inc., DBA, Vanguard Cleaning Systems of Dallas-Fort Worth, and the unit amount bid with an estimated annual expenditure of $65,320, authorizing the city manager to issue and execute the appropriate purchase orders and documents and providing an effective date. 4D, consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, authorizing the procurement of pipe bursting wastewater improvements in the Colonnade, Hilltop Estates, and Daniel Dale Acres additions with Insidiform Technologies, Inc., through a local government purchasing cooperative purchasing agreement in the expenditure amount of $1,229,737.50, authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary documents and providing an effective date.
Council, you've heard the captions read. The chair will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that those items be approved as read.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Will you please vote? Thank you very much. Item number 5 are individual items for consideration, and 5A is to conduct a public hearing and consider an ordinance of the City of Duncanville, Texas, amending the comprehensive zoning ordinance and map as heretofore amended by granting a change in zoning from PD2 Plan Development 2 zoning to C1 Light Commercial on Tract 6, 3.0 acres, Everett Chirac, abstract 1300, page 005, more commonly known as 1423 North Duncanville Road in the city of Duncanville, Dallas County, Texas, and being more particularly described in Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated herein, providing for the approval of the site plan, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein as Exhibit B, providing a repealing clause, providing a savings clause, providing a severability clause, providing a penalty of fine not to exceed the sum of $2,000 for each offense, and providing an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The public hearing tonight is a request for a change of zoning from Plan Development 2 to Light Commercial. The applicant is requesting approval of the change of zoning to expand the allowable uses to those allowed within the C1 district. The current zoning is within a plan development that was approved in 2003, which was a change in zoning from local retail 2, which limited the uses on that property. There is an existing 8,000 square foot multi-tenant, about 2-tenant building at the front of the property and a 4,800 square foot building, both of which are unoccupied. The existing PD had multiple conditions, and then those have been included into your packet. Most notably, there were 3 conditions that indicated that the front portion of the property was to be used for local retail 2 uses, and then the second portion of the property was limited to only 1 use, which was a sign installation contractor business. And then another condition required that the remaining 335 feet of the property that is currently undeveloped remain vacant. There were other conditions as well, but those are the most notable. The applicant contends that the restrictions on that property have made it difficult to market it for suitable uses for the site, particularly the condition that limits building 2 to only 1 use. So it's only for a sign installation contractor. So if anyone else wanted to occupy that building, they couldn't unless they were a sign installation contractor under the current zoning. The applicant has indicated that building 1 was vacant from September 2015 and building 2 was last occupied in February. The remaining approximately 675 feet of the property is undeveloped, and there is access to the property from Duncanville Drive. Duncanville Road. There's no existing landscaping on the subject property, with the exception of some existing vegetation along the rear of the property. I would note that the existing buildings are constructed of metal siding. And again, Building 1 has 2 tenant spaces, Building 2 does have bay doors. So they're really not necessarily designed for retail uses, which the current zoning would require. I would note the surrounding properties. The property is at the edge of the city limit, so it does abut the city of Dallas to the north. And to the east, across North Duncanville Road, a portion of that property is within Dallas. To the southeast, the property is zoned Industrial 1, and that is within the city of Duncanville. The property does abut Redbird Park to the west, and that property is zoned residential. And then the immediate property to the south is zoned local retail 2. There is a convenience store that fronts on North Duncanville Road, just south of the subject property. The C1 district is more permissive than the existing planned development. Obviously, the local retail 2 uses, as well as the additional, I guess, the limitation on the current PD for the sign installation contractor business. C1 allows for some retail uses, so those are still be permitted, such as convenience stores and restaurants. Those would be allowed under C1, but it is more permissive with some automotive-related uses as well. I would also like to note that the list of uses has been provided in your packet, so that does show the uses that would be allowed in C1. The sign installation contractor use under the existing PD somewhat is a little bit of a light commercial type of use. It's really not a retail use. So that type of use has kind of already been introduced to that subject property. However, again, it's very specific and therefore limiting on that property. You can't see the aerial, but I believe the aerial is in your packet. It does indicate, again, the surrounding land uses that. Oh, it is there. There we go. It does indicate the surrounding land uses that I spoke of previously. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the change of zoning request to light commercial by a vote of 5-1. And the applicant is present to answer any questions that you all may have and address any concerns.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so we will open the floor up. We will ask that anyone who would like to speak in favor or speak against, please come forward, give your name and address to the city secretary, and you have the floor.
My name is Jim Gual. I live at 1426 West Ridge in Duncanville, and I'm the owner of this subject property. We bought the property, I guess, in 2001, and it was 2003, I believe, when we finally got the zoning changed. I owned a sign installation and maintenance company. At the time, the city kind of pointed us to zone it this way to get something done so we could access and use the property immediately. I've since sold the sign company. It's no longer there. We had another business that we used just office space there on half of that building, and of course Fastenal was on the other half. But they've moved to another property, and we've sold our business. It's no longer there, so now I just need to be able to rent this building for the most feasible use for it. I do not have any plans to develop the back portion of the property, which is basically half of the property, I believe, that backs up to the park. I have no plans at all whatsoever to do anything with that property at this time. Of course, anything would have to be approved by the council to do anything anyway. But my goal is to possibly sell that property for residential if the market keeps going like it is. There's some adjacent property, the neighboring property that has several acres of residential land as well. So that's our hope, is somebody would be a market for it in the future to use for residential on the back portion. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Okay, this is a public hearing. We will have the council with question and answer period when we close the public hearing.
Okay.
So is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against the zoning change? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move we close public hearing.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Will you vote on closing the public hearing? Okay, thank you. Council? Chair will entertain a motion at this time. No motion? We really need a motion to put this on the floor, and then we can discuss.
Well, I'll move approval so we can discuss it.
Okay, all right. There's a motion and a second, so the motion is to approve. So at this time, we will call on council for comments, questions. Councilman Schwartz.
Yes, sir. Would you come back up to the podium, please? I might have misheard, but right now you don't have a potential tenant?
I have a tenant to rent the back building, the 4,800-foot section in the back, and half of the building, for actually a little bit more than half of the building. That's a company here in Duncanville, Dynamic Door Company. So they're waiting for an action tonight before they can start moving or doing whatever we need to do. All that would leave is approximately, I don't remember, like 3,600 feet, which is the south side of that property, which is half office and half just warehouse storage. That would be very restricted. You know, it'd just be used for office space, basically, because the back building and more than half of the front building will already be committed to with the zoning change.
Well, some of our concern, at least my concern, is that there's some uses in this commercial zoning that we're not real comfortable with at that site. You know, I'll pick one, outside storage of automobiles, you know, might be an example.
Behind an 8-foot fence?
Well, if we grant the zoning, you can do whatever you want to on the entire property. So I guess, and again, I'm basing this off of what I heard you say, you presently have a fence up some number of feet back. I mean, it kind of splits it, say, in half.
The entire portion of the property that is being used has an 8-foot fence around it. There might be one section where there's a forest that they didn't put the fence up in, but basically it's all fenced in.
You would have no problem if that back portion is not, I mean, if we restricted the use back there to leaving that as an open space adjacent to the park.
Adjacent to the park, I have no problem with that. I mean, to do anything would take further council action in the future, but I have no plans.
Well, it really wouldn't if we approved, if we just approved straight zoning on it.
I have no intentions of using the back portion of the
and
property for.
Obviously, we want to look at the use, and we also want to protect the park back there, and that's, you know,
I understand that, and my goals, really, the only thing we've thought about is the adjacent property to the south of us has a number of acres. I'm not sure how many they have, but I have basically half of our property, which is about almost 3 acres, I guess. Part of it's in Dallas, part of it's in Duncanville.
Yeah.
That would be the perfect plan. If it keeps going like we've been going, somebody's going to build some houses. So there's access on the property adjacent to us when they put, I think it's a Texaco station and a beer and wine store. I have no intention of putting in a beer and wine store to compete with anybody there because everybody's already doing that.
Yeah.
It's not anything I'm interested in at all for that property. But the way it was designed and developed at that time has access to the back portion of that building for future development. It's kind of what I looked at it for, is residential development. And I'd love to sell them that back property for residential development.
Well, if what we're talking about would be modifying your application a little bit to turn it into a PD, but allowing you to use the front part like you're talking about.
That's all I'm interested in.
But leaving the back part right today is an open space.
I have no problem with that. Just, I mean, from where the fence is now, I don't know if it's it's a line on the drawings.
Yes,
that's been
yeah.
provided to the city. I have no plans and no problem with restricting that back
To
portion.
go
adjacent to the
west of
park.
that back fence.
Right.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
What we're trying to do is get the map up on that small board. Any further questions or comments? Oh, Ms. Jameson, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Jameson.
Well, I have a lot of concerns because a lot of the permitted uses that would be available if we approved this, you know, I would not like to see the property used for. And if we, my understanding is from the attorney that if we approved this, that unless we amended it, those could be used. And so I think that we probably need to, I'm going through here and looking at them, and there's several under auto dealers, new cars only with incidental used car, auto detail shops, auto glass repair, on and on and on and on. There's all these. And exterminating, there's all sorts of things that I think it needs to be amended. And I don't know what the council would like to do in terms of you want to do it. Well, I just think we need to have more time to do this rather than trying to do it right now, because looking through the list, there's a lot.
I've been waiting for months. I missed one meeting, but since I was at the P&Z meeting, it's been over 30 days. I've got tenants ready to move in now that are not anything related to automobiles. They manufacture doors.
Sir, I'm sorry, would you speak with a mic so that we can get it recorded?
At this time, I do have a potential tenant, and he's in the door business. He's on Fair Meadows now. He's just moving to get larger space, but he wants that for display of his doors for his wholesale customers, and I guess some retail customers as well. He has rented the back part of the building. He wants it just for storage, strictly storage. There's no AC or anything back there, but that's really all that's for is storage. But the way it's written now, all I can store in there is my sign equipment that I don't own anymore. So that would be half of that building. The portion that's left is half offices, which is where our company's office until we sold it, and then they moved out late last year. But I don't know which ones are concerning you, because I don't know, you know.
There's a lot. Tire sales, transmission shop, truck dealers, quick oil change, motorcycle repair, motorcycle sales. There's a lot in here that is of concern.
What are the other options?
Well, that's what we talked about earlier.
I don't have to come and do this every time I have a tenant wanting to move in. We did this in 2003, and it was so restricted that that's all we could ever do there was have a sign business.
Sir, the reason why it's restricted is that it backs up to a park in a residential area.
And I mean, it's a park in the city of Dallas on the north side, which is, I don't know how it's zoned, but there's a commercial business in there now.
Right, and
I've already told Councilman Schwartz I have no problem restricting the back half of that property behind that fence, which is 200 or 300 feet from the park. That property is 1,000 feet deep. It's probably closer to 500 feet of vacant land that I have no intention or plans. I have no problems with any restrictions back there.
Well, I understand that, but you do understand that if we just blanket gave the zoning change, that this would include all of these. So,
Which ones do you have?
Well,
specifically have
see-
trouble with. Any kind of automotive repair is gonna be inside. It's gonna be behind, anything
I
will
would
be
not want
behind
automotive
an
repair
8-foot
there.
fence.
It's,
If I can, in order to get the property leased, if we could do it like this, to restrict the back building to the door company and the front building to office retail, and then the back property to portion to no development, would you be open to that?
I'm open to the back portion of no development, but I don't know how long Dynamic Door may be there. And if I have to go
Yeah.
through this every few years of not being able to do anything for months, it's not fair to me. I'm a citizen of Duncanville as well as everybody in here, and we own that property. But I have no intentions of anything going in there that would be harmful to the city of Duncanville. Because there's a little bit of parking out front and everything else behind the 8-foot fence that we spend a lot of money at the city's requirement.
Yeah, I was just trying to get to a quick solution. So,
well, it's not just the city, it's, you know, the park, the residents, the whole thing, and that's the entrance into, we have no jurisdiction over Dallas.
I understand.
But the Duncanville portion, we're working hard to take care of the parks and the residents and.
I mean, I can't level the property. It'll always be there, I assume. I've already donated basically half the property that will adjacent to the park. The entrance to the park is on Redbird Lane, not Duncanville Road.
I'm very well aware that's my district.
I understand.
And that the beer and wine gas station you're talking about has been a difficult situation for the neighborhood. So we don't want to exacerbate it.
I'll have no problem restricting beer and wine sales on my property.
Well, that's nice to hear. Because
There's plenty enough of those already. But I'm just looking for something, a tenant that's acceptable to the city.
Well, City Attorney, how can we do this? You know, how would you suggest? Because there are a lot of items in this list that are not conducive to that area. And he's already said that if the door company wanted to leave, then, you know, he would be open to something else. So,
Well, and I see a couple of issues here. First, because I don't want to forget to mention it, with reserving, I guess, for lack of a better word, I believe it's the western portion behind the fence, is that correct? Or accepting it from any change, we really would have to continue it as a PD. So what you would be doing is revising the current PD. So the back portion would not be affected by this change. The front portion to the east of the existing fence, would that be an accurate description? Would be all that we're focusing on for this revised PD. And you have some options with a zoning change request, as we discussed. You can approve what P&Z recommended, you can modify it, or you can deny it. So if we were looking at modifying it, if we were able to come to a situation that would work, you could approve it as modified. Then looking at your ordinance, if, as I'm hearing, he may have an issue where he needs to come back to council, you have an ability, the property owner may apply to city council for a waiver of the 12-month limitation if he had to come back within 12 months to grant a request if circumstances change. So there is an outlet there if that situation arises. If we make changes here that 6 months down the road don't work and he needs to come back, you know, there is that ability as well. So that might be a way that would help both parties come to something that would be agreeable.
so you limit it to the door company for the 12-month period? And then he would need to come back if something happened?
Well, they're not running the whole property. See, that's unfair to restrict the uses for us, where it's been vacant for months.
Mayor and council, might I kind of address what Alexis was stating? So if the direction is to amend the PD to allow for uses, my recommendation would be to allow it for specific range of uses instead of a specific use, because of the issue that the applicant is coming forward with you today, with it being limited to one tenant. Anytime the tenant changes, they have to go through rezoning, and that's a time-consuming process. So my recommendation would be to go through the list of uses and restrict the uses that are objectionable, and the applicant could agree to those uses, and then PD would be amended with those restricted uses and the remaining 335 feet to remain vacant. That would be my recommendation.
So do you want to go through the list?
Well, I guess so. I mean,
So
yeah,
you want-
that's kind of what I was talking about in the briefing room, is that it would have been nice to have had the opportunity to.
Can we get the list in the
It's
ordinance
in-
posted on the board?
Oh, it's not in the presentation, it's
Oh.
in your packet,
Yeah, it is.
and the applicant also has.
Attachment 4.
Might I add to all that might be, to expedite the process, to go ahead and list the uses that you're willing to go ahead and restrict, and we can start there as a point of conversation.
I prefer not to restrict any of them.
Well, I understand.
But so I need some feedback here
Okay.
to,
Well, Councilman.
I mean,
Councilman Burris.
I don't, y'all just need to let me know what I have to give up. And
Well, one of the things that makes some of these uses undesirable around a residential area is the outside storage concept. He is voluntarily leaving the fence where it is, which is going to limit greatly the amount of outside storage he can have, and in any use. So, 35% of the property can be used for outside storage, and so,
But you're correct that it would have to be screened.
yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying. If he stays in the limits of what's out there, there's not going to be a lot of outside storage.
the only thing outside the fence now is a parking lot.
That's not necessarily true. We do have instances in this town where there's an auto, they service auto in some manner, and they don't have room in their parking lot, so they park them along the streets, they park them in neighboring parking lots, and it's an issue that District 5 has been dealing with in another location.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be willing to get rid of all the auto. I think that's one of the concerns District 5 has.
And then you said the convenience store, that you would give up, right?
No intention of putting a convenience store. 62.
Exterminating company.
I have no problem with that. I've never talked to an exterminating company, but
Gasoline filling station with repair bays. There's motorcycle repair and sales, muffler shop. Did you look
want
at?
me to- I don't,
Did you look at this list?
yes, I
It's
mean,
pretty
I got
broad.
it tonight. I got
Yeah.
it tonight, but
Oh, you did? You didn't have,
I
Yeah.
got it 10 minutes before the meeting started.
we got it Friday
So-
night.
So anyway, I apologize. I haven't memorized and not that versed on
No,
this list.
no, I didn't
But
know
I
if
don't know
you.
what the alternatives are.
Well, and that's why I had suggested that we had an opportunity to go through this, and we wanted to talk to you first because we didn't know if you even had anybody that you wanted to put in here.
Well, I do. He's been on hold for a month.
So quick lube, quick oil change lubrication too?
Yes, quick oil change lube.
I don't,
Taxi headquarters and dispatch.
That would just be a.
Oh,
an office.
so like an office, you wouldn't have taxis out there? Let's see.
Good.
You may.
Yeah.
You might.
Yes, it says may include up to 3 handicap accessible vehicles, maximum capacity of 26 passengers.
Tire sales, transmission shop, truck dealers,
Yes, transmission shop, no. Tire dealers,
and
no.
I think that does it.
Truck dealers, no.
Did you get that?
Vehicle inspection. Well, who's taking it? Have you been doing it?
Do you want me to go through the list?
You want?
You want me to go through the list?
Okay.
Yeah. City manager's got a list of exclusions. We'll go through there and see what you think about that.
Mayor and Council, as I listened to you, what I marked down then was if the applicant is willing to delete these uses from the C1 permitted uses: auto dealers, new cars; auto detail shops; auto glass repair, replacement; auto laundry; auto rental; auto repair garage; auto seat covers; auto upholstery; auto seat covers; auto upholstery and installing inside only; auto stereo or alarm systems; convenience stores, no facilities; convenience stores with facilities for gas and gasoline filling service station.
You skipped
Motors-
exterminating.
Pardon?
You skipped exterminating.
Okay. Oh, exterminating. Didn't catch that one.
you have a lot of buzz, you know.
Motorcycle repair and motorcycle sales; quick oil change and lubrication; muffler shop; tire sales with inside installation; transmission shops; truck dealers; and then, did you say vehicle inspection also? Although that says inside only, or state, or that's state required. But you want taxi headquarters? Yeah. Okay, taxi headquarters and vehicle inspection. Did that cover them all? I mentioned that, yeah. Do you want me to go back through that again? Repeat
Well, I
that?
got it.
Okay. That was the list that the council provided to you. If
I don't anticipate seeing any problem with it. I don't know what my alternatives are. I've got a tenant trying to get in there now, and
Well, what that does is it essentially allows you all of the other uses. So you would, if you were willing to delete these uses from the C1 zoning uses, the council would be able to grant a PD with all of the other uses then, essentially, correct,
Well,
city attorney?
again, I want to avoid all the restrictions that I can on the property, and I don't understand why an auto glass shop in the back or something would be a problem. You know, I mean, it's not, you're never going to see them.
You see auto glass places.
I think the issue is that we already have this issue in town, especially in District 5, is the businesses that deal with autos, they don't have spaces for the cars in their parking lot. So they end up parking them along the street or in other parking lots that violate zoning issues. And so we've just been dealing with this for the past 3 years and for other locations, because
I'm aware of one or two of those locations.
Yeah, and so that's just why it's all auto-focused.
I got you. Well, I have no problem with that. I mean, they've got to, I'm not gonna do anything to the building. I'm not gonna make it where a big car dealer wants to come in there, or I've got a door guy and a 3,600 feet of office that I'm trying to get rented out, and office warehouse, and I don't anticipate outside storage.
Okay. Well, if those would be acceptable, I know you'd like to just have straight C1, but if those are acceptable, then I think we can go ahead and modify that PD and give it to you that way, and that would give you a lot of leeway with
That's
what you
fine.
work
That's
with.
fine.
There's one other issue that you need to put in there, and that's about restricting some of the space in the back there next to the park.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
And the other thing I'd like to put in, as suggested by our attorney, is that you don't have to wait a year to come back if you want to modify it. This will be a PD. If you want to modify it, for instance, you get a good auto use, I don't know what that might be. If you could come back and convince us, then we would modify the PD, and you would not have to wait a year to do that. Is that, we can do that?
I don't know that it would be a condition you would add into this particular change itself. The way the ordinance reads is if there is a change in circumstances, he can apply to the council that the 12-month restriction be waived at that point. So it's just something that's already built into your ordinance as an ability there.
The bottom line is you don't have to wait a year.
And if he sold the property?
No,
It
if you
would
sold
not-
the property, the PD is there, and as long as is used for the same thing that we granted him, it would be permissible.
So if he wanted to sell it, say, to a developer for residential use, then we'd have to change the zoning again.
Well, sure.
In that.
Well, I was just making sure he understood that.
Oh, no, I understand that, but it's, I hadn't had any offers, so I'm not planning on selling the property.
Well, you might. You never know.
Okay, Gerald entertained, if you made the motion, Councilman Forrest, if you want to amend your motion.
Well, I will amend the motion to include the modifications we've made this evening.
Okay, now, who seconded the
Without
motion?
listing all of that.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, and that is for the eastern portion of the property,
Okay.
as we've discussed.
So we don't have to vote on that, because, do we? We do have to vote on the amendment? Amending, okay, well, we hadn't voted on the motion yet.
But we
Okay, so this is an
But I think
amendment
it
to
was
the
a-
motion that has
yeah.
been accepted by the
Yeah, I think it was a
person that
consensus of the council.
seconded it. So this is the current motion now. Does everybody understand that?
well, we don't have it really written yet, but with what we think we've said.
Well, it's the
My
motion,
notes
not what we
match.
think we said.
Yeah, I think-
Mary, what's the motion that you have?
The motion, excuse me, the original motion was made by Dennis Schwartz to approve, and then you seconded that. And then his amendment to it would be to include the modifications as discussed tonight in the meeting, and I believe you seconded that.
And the modifications, do you have that down?
Yes, it's
Okay.
the same things that
So
Mr. Hugman discussed.
Does that include the buffer?
And that includes the buffer.
Includes the buffer at the back of the
Yes.
property?
Okay, any further discussion concerning this? Seeing none, will you please vote? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir. Okay, item number, what are we on? Item number B, consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, approving the request of Take 5 Oil Change located at 570 West Wheatland Road, Duncanville, Texas, to allow signage to be installed on the rear wall of the building, with the rear wall also being considered as a display frontage as depicted in Exhibit 1, and to grant 17 square foot variance to allow wall signage as depicted in Exhibits 2 and 3, authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary documents and providing an effective date.
Okay, Mayor, Council, thank you. I'm here tonight to talk about two variance requests for two separate addresses that were heard by the Sign Control Board on May the 26th. And the first one is at 570 West Wheatland Road, which is a oil exchange place that had been taken over by a company called Take 5 Oil Change. In the first part of their request, it was unusual because they have a unique setup where you don't get out of your car to get your oil change here. You pull around back, and they come out, find out what you need. You drive in, you sit in your car, and they take care of your oil change or whatever else they're changing out in there. So it brought up an interesting question that they posed to the Sign Control Board in a request, and that was, the ordinance says you can have two display frontages. And typically, that's going to be the front of any building. Sometimes it's a front and a side. You're allowed to have up to two display frontages. So viewing this from the perspective of this unusual setup for oil exchange, where the majority of the customers do actually enter from the back, they asked for consideration for that to be considered a frontage, and they were granted that. They were approved by the Sign Control Board unanimously to allow that to happen. That allowed them to avoid a prohibition against putting signs on the rear of a building, because this is no longer considered by the sign ordinance to be the rear of the building. It was now a display frontage, and so they were allowed to have some signage that met the requirements, so they're not having to ask for a variance for that signage on the back side. I apologize. I understand there's a delay on this. And there's the variance request is to allow signage on the rear wall, with the rear wall also being considered a display frontage, and that's what was approved. Okay, there's a picture, artist rendering of the back of the store, and you can see 3 bay doors and the signage that they're going to put back up there that would, under the declaration that this is a display frontage, they meet the requirements, so there's no variance required there. This next one should be an aerial view showing, that's Wheatland out there in front, and the building's in the center there. So you can see how they can come in off the driveway on the east side, loop around, and then come in the back of the building and have their car serviced that way. So that takes care of the first request, and they recommended the council for approval on that request. The second request is to allow 17 square feet of signage beyond the allowable 60 square feet of signage on the front and east side of the store. So the next drawing will show you the signage that they've got, that they would like to have in the front of the store, which is the, can't read it from here, but it's the fastest oil change on the planet, and then the oil can up on top, and then the castor oil sign over the door. Those checkerboard signs don't really count as signs. And then they additionally are asking for one small mobile oil sign on the east side of the building. That does exceed the allowable 60 square feet by 17 feet. So once again, the Sign Control Board granted that variance to allow that additional signage so that they could advertise on that south side, or I'm sorry, east side, but it also includes a little bit of the signage on the front side as well to get their desired signage on the building. Again, that was approved unanimously. That was the request for 570. The next public hearing was for an address at 531.
You can't.
I'm sorry, 831 North
You gotta
Duncanville.
do this.
One at a time.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is a street frontage view. That was just show what the building looked like prior to them going in, and oil change off occurred in the front there. Okay, here's 831. This
Greg,
is
they need to,
We gotta
they
have
need
them
to
one at a time.
vote on this item. This is, they're separate items. They need to
Okay.
consider this item.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, considering item number B, the chair will entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion is second to approve. Are there questions, council, comments? Councilwoman James.
Now we know why you've been going there riding in your car through the oil change. You never told us you didn't get out of the car. So you just get in your car and ride through? So
5 minutes?
Steve, if I were you, I'd tell her she ought to get out more.
and so you just sit in your car the whole time?
Actually, I haven't been there yet, but that's what you do.
Oh.
Because I've seen it in there when I drive by.
Oh.
But it's always been that entrance from the back when you got the state inspections there. You drive through it around the back.
And then you just pay through the window?
I guess so. Before it was the Mobile One, you stayed in your car. But when the Mobile One took it over, you got out of your car and there was a little waiting room there.
I've been there, you stay in your car, and when you finish, then they just come up to your car and you just pay them. You drive off.
Wow.
They're the only ones that do it like that.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. Well,
Councilmember
very cool.
Schwartz.
This is more just a request, I guess, from the manager. Could we start getting a percentage of variance on these applications? It'd be easier to, 17 feet, what percent
Yes.
of the allowable is that?
We can do that.
You know, in the future?
Okay, seeing no further lights, are you ready to vote? Please vote. Thank you. All right, item number C is to consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, approving the request for an additional 38 square feet of wall signage to the existing 30 square foot of wall signage on the property located at 831 Road, Duncanville, Texas, to be erected on the east wall of the building for a total of 68 square feet versus the allowable of 40 square feet as depicted in Exhibit A, and such sign shall be constructed, located, and maintained to the dimensions as depicted in Exhibit A, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein, authorizing the city manager or his designee to issue the required permits and providing an effective date. Chair will entertain a motion concerning this.
Mayor, I move that we deny this because it will provide a look that's not consistent with what would be comfortable for the neighborhood.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Councilman Schwartz. But how do you know that? You don't have the percent.
Oh, an engineer can tell.
Well, it's twice the size. All right, any further comments? The motion is to deny. Please vote. Okay, thank you. Item number D is to consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, authorizing the acceptance of a grant from Edward Byron Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program, JAG, to be administered by the City of Dallas in the amount of $6,795.79 to be utilized to purchase extended maintenance agreement for the mobile video server, DVD burner, and the 2 in-car mobile video system digital video recorders for the police department, and authorizing the city manager to execute the necessary documents. Chair will entertain a motion. Motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, will you please vote? Okay, thank you. This being the last item on our agenda tonight, we now stand adjourned at 8:03.